welcome.
All right, this is Jeffrey Harris, and you're listening to the 411 Wrestling Interviews podcast. We are talking to a living legend today. She is a former WWE Women's Champion, a former Knockouts Champion. She's a Hall of Famer. She is one of the best in the business. She is Gail Kim. Gail Kim, thank you for joining us today. It has been...
Thank you for that introduction.
Yeah, you are welcome, and you deserve it, quite frankly. It's great to be talking to you in light of everything going on. So first of all, thank you for joining us today, with all this coronavirus virus madness. But I hope with this we can, give fans, something to enjoy and listen to through everything.
Yeah, definitely, and maybe something to look forward to with our project.
Yes, that as well. So you are collaborating with Lita and Christy Hemme for this great project on Kickstarter called Kayfabe. So why don't you run down Kayfabe a little and give us a little bit of the pitch, so to speak, for what we can expect for the Kayfabe project?
Well, to sum it all up, pretty much to keep it nice and simple, it's a scripted drama inspired by female professional wrestling. And, it's the first time, I think, it's been a very male-dominated industry. And so female stories or perspective has always been told through the lens of a man. And we just felt like, women's wrestling has progressed so much. And we thought, well, what's the next step to advance it and do something great for women's wrestling? And we just thought it would be great to hear it from our point of view.
Now, some interesting stuff is happening with, drama and wrestling, believe it or not, these days, between Glow on Netflix, and also there's another show that's happening right now called Heels with Stephen Amell. You would think a business like this would make for good drama, right?
Oh, definitely. I mean, between all of our years together, decades of being in this business combined, I think Christy said it was over 50 years or something like that. We just have so many stories and so many sources of inspiration and, things that, and those two shows that you're talking about, that's great. And we love more and more for wrestling. And, we don't feel like we're a competition. We're just adding to the great pile of wrestling products. But it's never been told through a woman. Like even the projects that you're talking about, they were run by males, right? So I think this is going to be refreshing. I think that it's going to be something that women can relate to, people in our business, outside the business. And, there's so many layers of stories that you don't get to see, and we just want to tell them.
Now, the Kickstarter pitch says it will address the 800-pound elephant in the room and in the current landscape of the world: abuse of power, manipulation, injury, addiction, inequality, and the euphoric high of pursuing your life's passion that clouds every decision. So, is your hope with this show to have stories of things that that Lita and Christy experience, but maybe changing the names and faces a bit, and kind of making.
I think that was like a misconception when we put that out, and a lot of people saw the trailer and they see the girl in the trailer and we're like, that's the character. This is a scripted drama. Like we said, we have a creative team, a small team of writers, and I think it's going to be natural for people to go, oh my God, is that Christy? Or, oh my God, is that so-and-so and so-and-so? But it's not. It's not Christy's story. It's not Amy's story. It's not Gail Kim's story. These are all just all of the women's stories in wrestling and also in the world. You're seeing it happen all over the world, and these are our sources of inspiration to give them a voice and create these specific characters and take you along for the ride. That's where we had to explain. Okay, that's not our stories. Okay. We are the executive producers of this show.
Right.
And we're creating this magical thing.
Okay, so it's not necessarily things that personally happen to you, but it's sort of inspired by those. Okay. Also, I'm curious about the production team you've assembled for this show. It looks like a great group of veterans. Also, Chavo Guerrero, Dave Sehadi
Yeah.
and the like.
Yeah, when we started this project, we really wanted to create the best A team possible. Through all our years of working in this business, we all had people in mind. Of course, some of us had worked together. Most of us have worked together at some point or another. But, in the case of, say, I never worked with Tom Casiello. He was there, and he was a key factor in the women's revolution and writing during that time. So Amy had worked with him, and she had highly recommended him. And, I work with Jimmy Jacobs at Impact Wrestling, and I just think he's a genius. And so, we all had our different suggestions, and everyone that we really approached, they were all our first choice, and they all were on board right away. And, that was a very positive, encouraging feeling that everyone wanted to be part of this and that they saw the vision as we did, and they just had the same attitude and, supported women's wrestling and saw the great things that we wanted to do and bring it to the next level.
You're a trailblazer, Gail, and you have a historic, illustrious career. So if we can go back to June 30th, 2003, you make your, which was just under 17 years ago, believe it or not. So let's go back to that night.
All a blur.
You make your debut on Raw, and you win a Battle Royal, and you become WWE Women's Champion your first night on TV. What was that moment like for you at that time? And when did it become real for you? Like, hey, I'm in the business. I won the WWE Women's Championship. Is this actually happening to me?
Well, I remember that day, and I don't remember that day. It was a blur, and I was just so green. And for that to happen, I just, I didn't even. Other girls or how people were. The perception of, thank God I didn't know, actually, because I'd probably be so paranoid. But I remember looking back at it and thinking, oh my God, what was the rest of the roster thinking? Like, I just walk in there. I didn't have time to really grasp it. Very appreciative of the moment looking back that I became women's champion. But, I think it's more satisfying if you work so hard and you want to, attain that goal and you achieve it after some hard work. And I'm grateful, but I've done it a different way, because when you start at the top, especially when you're green, the only place you're going is down, right? So it was a great learning experience, and I think I wouldn't have learned any quicker, to be honest. It's just hard to really talk about that time, because I don't know, I feel so mixed on it, very split. I'm grateful, but then at the same time I knew it wasn't the right thing.
Right.
If I'm going to be completely honest.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, because winning the Knockouts championship for the first time, that was like a moment I relished and like felt great about, like I worked really hard for it.
I think it's great, and I think it's fascinating that you have that sort of perspective and insight on that moment for your career. That, maybe it was a little too early for me at that time, but it's also part of the journey, of your career.
It really was.
But speaking of the Knockouts title and your run in TNA Impact Wrestling, do you think what you did, what women such as you, Awesome Kong, did in the Knockouts division made what's happening now in the business with the women's revolution, evolution? Do you think you laid the groundwork for that and made things like that possible? Because I feel like what was happening in TNA with the Knockouts division, I think, is sort of what was happening in WWE years later, and you guys were doing it every week.
It's hard to say. I mean, because WWE is the biggest and probably the main platform for wrestlers out there, and what a lot of the fan base gets to see. But I will say, whenever I talk to female wrestlers that did watch us at that time, they would always say we were the source of inspiration. So that was really nice to hear that we could inspire other female wrestlers, as they were coming up through the system. So that was great. I don't know. At that time, all I knew was that I wanted to wrestle. And that's all I fought for at that time. And the people saying, people don't want to watch women's wrestling, it's a bathroom break. And I would be like, no, it's not. It's like, I refuse to believe you and you're wrong. So I'm glad I kind of kept that mindset, because I knew what I wanted to do. And I knew there were other girls that wanted to do that. And I'm really thankful for Jeff Jarrett at that time, for really giving us that opportunity, because no one believed in women's wrestling back then. I think they got sick of hearing me beg every day. I just remember Scott D'Amore being like, okay, I don't want to hear it anymore. Because I'd be like, please let me wrestle. Please let me wrestle. I almost felt like I was going to quit at one point, because I felt like that was my talent in this business, in the ring. So when I wasn't in the ring, I just felt like I was wasting my time. And it's just hard when you're waiting and waiting and waiting, and I'm glad I waited it out though, and I'm glad that they gave us the chance, because I felt like the Knockouts division, bringing in like 10 girls at once, that can sometimes be a train wreck if you bring in 10 girls at once, and it really turned out to be almost a success overnight. And so TNA Impact Wrestling has kind of kept that flow going since back then, and that's what I love about the company. And now I'm a producer for the girls, and just being able to be on the other side of the coin and give back and try to still maintain, us being something special and being part of that company, a special attraction that everyone knows, that they're like, oh yeah, the Knockouts. I think we've built out that reputation that we're an important part of that company, and they've just continued to let it grow.
Yeah, and I definitely think those early matches you had with Awesome Kong, like I feel like those were just special matches, and those are on par with, I think, any match. Like, you would put those against any match that the men were doing at the time, if not even better. And I think that was a very special program you two worked together. Now, there was a time when you went back to WWE around 2009, 2011, and you were a veteran at that point. You had years of experience under you at that time. But how would you characterize that time where you went back to WWE? Did it not go the way you had hoped?
Yeah, if I'm going to be completely honest, but when I went back, I did, clear my past in terms of how I felt, and I really was optimistic. And at that time, I remember, because it was past the diva search and all that stuff, that had already long gone, and they were starting to have the women wrestle again. And so I felt very positive, and I was like, okay, I'm stronger, I'm wiser, I have more experience under my belt, and I had done this stuff with Awesome Kong, so I did feel more confident. And so when I went back, it was disappointing, I will say. I'll say that I never felt like I was used to my potential. Right. They had seen what I had done in TNA, and that's why they hired me back. And so I would think a logical thing would be to use you to your best ability and what is great about that person, about the talents that person has. But I never felt like that was happening. And so, and this is the way I look at it, because a lot of people are like, oh, I don't understand why WWE never used you in the proper way. Or on the other side of the coin, a lot of people are like, why are you so bitter about it? And for me, listen, I look back, and the way that I look at it is that if they didn't treat me that way, I would never have done all the things I did in TNA. I would never have, and then I went back to TNA Impact, and I had my feud with Taryn Terrell, and if they didn't treat me that way, then I wouldn't have left. right?
Right.
I wouldn't have been able to make that magic afterwards. And so I'm grateful for every experience. I'm a true believer in everything that happens in your life is meant to be. And it happens for a reason. It sounds very cliche, but I'm a true believer in that. And you may not know why until years later. And I'm just so satisfied and happy with my career. And, there's not many people who can say that they ended their career with some closure. And that's why I'll never step back into a ring in an official match.
Right.
Because I know it's a very rare thing to have, and I'm very grateful. And I don't want the fans to remember me as anything but my best. So that's the way I prefer to leave it, and I am.
Now, and not to start any drama or bitterness or anything, but I was always curious, like that time when we had that storyline with you where you turned out, where the Bella twins were going after Daniel Bryan. And then you turned out to be Daniel Bryan's actual girlfriend, and you kind of had that moment with the Bellas. Like, when they bring that to you, what were your thoughts initially? I mean, did you see that as okay, I've got a storyline going on TV, it's better than nothing, or what were you? I guess what were your thoughts on the matter when that happened?
Actually, I'll tell you a little behind the scenes story with that. I was on the house show loop that weekend. And I remember I was ready to quit. I was going to go to Raw and I was going to quit. I was just done. Very done. And Bryan Gewirtz, the head writer of Raw, who we got along really well, and I know he's a superfan, but I knew a lot of storylines that he wrote just got nixed. And so he had called me with excitement because he's like, oh my God, we have a story for you finally. And I was like, oh my God, the week that I was going to quit, he's calling me which he never did. He's calling me because he's so excited that he's got a storyline for me. So it was something I really wrestled with. I was just like, oh, what do I do? And then he told me the storyline, and I just thought, okay, I'll give it a shot and see where it goes. And, it was a good experience in terms of having a story and being more of a, not wrestler, but character, I guess, amongst the story. But people remember it, I'll say that, that's for sure. So that did prolong my time there. And I think we played that out, and it was basically like, I remember they were really happy with it. They loved the cat fights and all that thing, all those things. And we had 2 more cat fights after that, backstage and in the ring. And then I got kind of replaced by Eve Torres in that storyline. And I remember just thinking, okay, why did that happen? And then I think it was, I tried to talk it out with some of the people in the office, just confused about my direction and why I wasn't being used, and I really didn't get any answers. So I was just really unhappy, and I truly believe that, in life you just got to be happy. And I never, at that point, money wasn't important to me. I knew, I felt like literally I was taking my time away, and I knew I had something to give to this business. And so I said, I gotta leave. I have to leave.
Now, I mean, it's kind of sad, but you did kind of mention cat fights, and that's just kind of what it was. And it is kind of a product of its times, but I feel like we're slowly moving away with that in wrestling, where, the women can be on the show. You're not there as accessories to the men. You're having your own matches and programs, and it's not about cat fights over the guys or cat fights for the guys. Do you feel those positive steps are being taken now?
Oh, yes, definitely. I mean, it's really changed, especially in the last couple of years. And I think there's been great progress, and I'm so happy to see that. I would like to see, let's say on the WWE stage, because that's what everyone watches. I love that they main evented WrestleMania last year. It was last year, right?
At 35.
I love, that they were doing Mae Young Classic and Evolution pay-per-views. We were doing a couple of interviews yesterday, and a lot of the women's wrestling fans were like, "Oh, they haven't had it." So I think there needs to be some consistency with that. And like we said, we're doing this Kayfabe project because we're like, what's the next level here? How can we make ourselves different and give something fresh to women's wrestling and something that's authentic and true to us? And so that's why we did this project. We just really wanted to just grab the bull by its horns and give the wrestling world something that they've never seen before.
Now, you also touched on it earlier, but you basically got to end your career on your own terms, and that's not something many legends in this business and some of the biggest names in this business, they can't really say that. I guess what can you say about that? That you got to have your career on your terms and got to have the last match the way you wanted it to be.
Yeah, it was honestly a dream come true. I was so anxious and nervous, and because I hadn't wrestled for a year almost, and I just knew the way that I ended before that wasn't the way that I wanted, and it didn't settle well with me. And I was fortunate to be a producer with Impact Backstage, and Scott Demore and the team there, they were running things. And Scott I've known since I started out on the indies, so we had a great rapport. And I saw Tessa Blanchard come along, and I was like, she's so talented. And I said, if we can do this, and if you can make this, like, it has to be 2 to 3 month storyline, because I wanted the fans truly invested. And, because I think that that's sometimes lacking right now, because everything moves so quickly. It's like, I just want it to be that. I just want it to be one match, and I'm going to pour my heart into it. And I really honestly couldn't have asked for anything more. So when that happened, I was just like, okay, I'm going to leave it. A lot of people say, oh, wrestlers don't really retire, and, maybe people might not believe me right now, but I'll tell you right now, I'm 100% certain.
Now, I gotta know, during your time in WWE, did you ever have any conversations with Vince, and did Vince ever give you any type of feedback?
No, I never did try, but I'm not an easy man to get access to. Little folk like me, I think. I'm not sure. I had tried. And maybe I should have tried harder, and that's on me. And I didn't know. I had a lot of questions that were unanswered. You question yourself, like, am I good enough? Am I the look that they want? I had a lot of confusion, and so I tried to talk to other people, and just never really got clear answers. And you get to the point of such unhappiness, and you got to make decisions. And I'm the type of person, once I know what my goal is, I'm going after it. So I knew, okay, I'm leaving this company. This is not happy for me. And at the time I was with my husband. We weren't married yet, but I really look up to him, and he's a source of inspiration for me. And, he's the type, we both have kind of the same attitude of, once you know what your goal is, you got to go after. I just knew I wanted to leave. I knew I had more to give. I knew I wasn't going to be able to give it there, because if you look back at that time, they weren't doing what the women are doing now.
Right.
So I think I would have fit in with what the women are doing now. I don't think that they were anywhere near where I wanted to be at that time. So it was just better for me to take myself out of the situation, and I think it was the best thing I could have ever done. And truly, TNA was my home, to be honest, and I went back, as soon as my contract, because I quit with like 7 weeks left in my contract, and as soon as those 7 weeks were up, I went that week, and I just fell back into a comfortable place where I felt like I could just be Gail Kim and do what I was meant to do, and that was wrestle in the ring.
You're a Hall of Famer in my book. just for everything you've done and accomplished. You are in the Impact Hall of Fame. If the WWE ever gave you a call and offered you a spot in the Hall of Fame, would you take that, and would you go out there and for the induction?
I mean, people have asked me this before. This is a really hard question to answer. I don't know. I mean, obviously, I would just want to make good on terms of just like any other relationship you would have in your life. You don't want any type of like, I look back and am grateful for my time there and everything. I just there were certain experiences I had that maybe need to just be discussed. I think,
Right.
I think everything's about communication and having an open conversation. And, there are things that I experienced that didn't really sit well with me. And so, like I said, those would be discussions to be had to work out.
You once wrote on your Twitter that you would sometimes see WWE writers coming out of their rooms stressed and crying. But
Yeah.
I'm curious, have you ever had a moment like that in the business where you you really have to, get a handle on things and not letting this, the tough parts of this business get to you, and just kind of move forward and progress?
Yes, of course, all the time. I think everyone does in their lives, whether they're in wrestling or not. It applies to every job out there, I would think. And especially when you care about something so much, and I'm so passionate about wrestling. And I always make this joke because my husband said, "Oh, you cry about wrestling, but you didn't cry at our wedding," right? Because I don't know, it's my first love, I guess you could say. I'm so deeply passionate. I feel like I need to be a perfectionist when it comes to that. And of course, there's always going to be challenges, and we've discussed them now. About being in a place where it was the wrong timing for me, and when I felt like I had something to give, but they weren't ready for that. So that was a challenge in itself, and just figuring out being thrown in it 2 years. Just into wrestling and becoming the WWE champion. There's so many situations like that, and I think it just helps you become stronger. It's really created who I am today.
Now, circling back to Kayfabe, what is your favorite aspect of this project?
My favorite aspect, has been working with, my friends, Christy and Amy, and the fact that, we've always kind of been, wrestling is a very, not self-centered career, but you are focusing on your own brand. You're focusing on trying to get ahead within the industry, and just coming out of the ring and being able to work with those girls that you have such a tight bond with and share the same passion, and you guys are fighting. It's really been working with the girls and being able to collaborate with these girls that we had a bond already before this, but now to work as a team together for other women, and to be able to support each other, and it's been great. It's really made us see other sides of our relationship, and you never know how it's going to be, the balance of three girls working together, but it's been amazing.
Now, last question. I think this is a fun question, so thank you for bearing with me. Has your husband, Robert Irvine, has he ever cooked you anything that, when you tasted it, you had to, really grin and bear it? You're
never,
okay.
never.
So never a dish where you're like, "Sorry, honey, but you need to workshop this a little bit more." Never.
And it's good. So, I am a hot sauce freak.
Okay.
And so the dishes that he makes, I never have to add hot sauce. That's how good it is.
Wow. Okay, great. Okay, and so last thing, Gail, so you have the Kickstarter for Kayfabe going on. Any other social media plugs, any merchandise plugs, or anything else you have going on? I wanted you to give you the time to share on that.
Yeah, Yeah, you can find us on Kickstarter.com. You can just search Kayfabe, or you can go to This Is Kayfabe on all the social media platforms: Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and we have direct links to our Kickstarter. And if you want to, or even you can just spread the word. Support us that way. If you don't have, especially in this difficult time right now with this coronavirus going on. We understand that times are tough, so if you could just spread the word and support us, that's just as good.
Gail, thank you so much for your time, and congratulations and best of luck on this project. I think it looks fantastic. So best of luck for you on this Kickstarter campaign, and second of all, just thank you for just all the work and just this great body of work and career you've given us over the years, and what you've done for the fans, and not women's wrestling, but I think wrestling in general. So wanted to thank you.
That's very kind of you. I appreciate it. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much, and you've been listening to Gail Kim on the 411 Wrestling Interviews podcast.